Hello there everyone, I'm Diesel, and welcome back to another edition of The Curry Furry. And about heckin' time too. My last cooking vid was admittedly at the end of, well, last year. And look how close we are to the end of this year, but in my defense, I have been a very, very busy derg. But we're not here to talk about my non-existent upload schedule. Tonight, it is Halloween. Time for spoops of all kinds. And if you're into food that sends chills up and down your caffeinated spine, whoo, have I got a recipe for you tonight. You may be trying to think up something to serve to a few guests you're having over for Halloween, but when it comes to holiday meals, Halloween is definitely one of the trickier holidays to come up with a meal for that isn't just, well, dessert. So tonight, we are channeling our inner monster and going as deep into the depths as we possibly can go. We're going to make something that looks like it could come crawling right out of your cauldron. For this is what I am going to call Sea Monster Curry. And let me just say, this curry was a bit difficult to put together, if I'm being honest. Not because of the cooking part, absolutely not, but because it was so difficult to make sure that many tentacles stayed in one pot. Trust me, making something like this ain't as easy as you may think. Ah, what the? You see what I mean? Come on, you didn't even know any of the sea creatures those tentacles belong to. Ah! Okay, past me, could you take over for now while I try to find a way out of this mess?
Sure. So, for produce, you'll need several ounces of spinach and kale. I'm using baby spinach and baby kale for this. In addition to 2 whole limes, 3 jalapeno peppers, 1 shallot, and some fresh thyme sprigs. Other produce you'll need is garlic, ginger, lemongrass, basil, and cilantro, and 2 more jalapenos. But since I'm making this for myself, I'm using paste versions of all of these because I'm hypersensitive to certain food textures. For spices, you'll need ground cardamom, coriander, cumin, garam masala, and cinnamon sticks. You'll also need a can of seafood stock, 2 cans of light coconut milk, and of course, salt and black pepper. For the cooking oil, I went with avocado oil, but vegetable or canola oil would probably work here just fine. And of course, you're gonna need a scary seafood ingredient. And for this dish, that's octopus. Specifically whole raw baby octopus and pre-cooked octopus tentacles to use as a garnish later. Oh, and you'll need shrimp, for the guests who won't go anywhere near the octopus.
So, before doing anything else, you'll need to make the curry paste. Pound the garlic, ginger, lemongrass, 2 jalapenos, basil, cilantro, cumin, coriander, cardamom, and half a lime's worth of lime juice in a mortar and pestle, or use a blender or food processor and blend until smooth.
If you're using the paste versions of the first 6 ingredients, simply mix everything in a small cup or bowl until well combined. And boom! You got green curry paste. And yes, everything is going to be very green throughout this whole process.
Next, slice the jalapenos, removing the seeds, and dice them alongside the 1 shallot. You should also cut up the octopus into smaller pieces. You don't want to cut the pieces too small, especially when working with baby octopus. Mine were a teeny bit on the small side, so they did end up a little bit tough, unfortunately. But thankfully, they didn't end up rubbery. Also, make sure to peel and devein the shrimp, if they haven't been already. Now, before you get to cooking, make sure you combine the spices you're using into a small bowl, cup, or container beforehand. That way, when you get to the cooking step, you won't have to worry about grabbing this spice, and that 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 spice. Basically, it'll save you the trouble of performing a very spicy juggling act. Specifically, that's 1 teaspoon of cardamom, 2 teaspoons of coriander, 2 teaspoons of cumin, 1 teaspoon of garam masala, 1 teaspoon of salt, and half a teaspoon of black pepper. Ah, why the heck are you back? Get out of here.
Next, you'll need to add about 2 cups of both spinach and kale to a blender or food processor, along with 1 can of coconut milk, 1 lime's worth of lime juice, a teaspoon of garam masala, and a pinch of salt and black pepper. Then blend all this stuff together until you have a nice, healthy amount of green goo, which you'll be setting aside for the time being. Okay, now we can get to the cooking part. Heat about 1 tablespoon of avocado oil or your preferred cooking oil in a wok over medium-high heat. Once the oil is hot enough, toss in the diced jalapenos and shallot and stir-fry them for about 5 minutes, or until the shallot bits turn translucent, whichever comes first. After that, toss in 2 cinnamon sticks and 2 thyme sprigs, and then stir-fry them in the oil for about 20 seconds, just to add more flavor to the oil.
Okay, the next step is very important because you want to add the following ingredients in the following order. First, you add the curry paste. Stir-fry that for about 30 seconds, and then you add the shrimp. After stir-frying the shrimp for about a minute or two, then you add the octopus and the spice mix. The reason you don't want to add the octopus before the shrimp is because octopus is a very easy protein to overcook. And the last thing you want to end up with is a bowl of tough, rubbery tentacles. Oh, and why didn't I show these steps specifically? Because I forgot to check if my camera was on during that part. Blame this orange fuzzball right here. Trust me, it's a lot more important keeping him off the counter and out of the kitchen.
But in any case, you just want to stir fry everything that's now in the wok for another minute or two, until the shrimp are opaque. The octopus is going to cook fairly quick, so you don't want to stir fry here for too long. Once that happens, turn the heat down to low and dump in the blended spinach kale mixture. Depending on how much you watched Nickelodeon as a kid, this step may or may not be nostalgically satisfying. After dumping in the green stuff, pour in another half a can of light coconut milk, along with about 2 cups of seafood stock. Top it off with another half a slice of lime juice, a couple of teaspoons of garam masala, about 2 teaspoons of salt, and a half a teaspoon of black pepper, then mix everything together until it's well combined. At that point, you just need to let it simmer for about 7 or 8 minutes.
Once the time is up, all you have to do at that point is, well, serve it. Now this next step is completely optional for serving it. But if you really want to give it that Halloween look, you're going to need to take a few extra measures. First, you'll need one of these. No, I'm not talking about one of you, damn it. One of these. A cauldron. But make sure it's a food-safe cauldron, not a plastic one. I cannot stress that enough. Oh, and you'd probably think this cauldron would be way too big for the amount of curry that I actually made. But don't worry, I made sure the inside wasn't as big as the outside. Now here's where you pull off a few food photography shenanigans. And this is also where the pre-cooked octopus tentacles come in. You're going to literally drape those over the side of the cauldron without them falling over. You could use forks to pierce the ends of the tentacles and then stand the forks up inside the cauldron. That way the tentacles don't just fall off the sides. Or you could tie the ends of the tentacles together with butcher's string. Or you could literally do what I did and put a plate on top to make it look like the shrimp and the octopus were floating. And if you think you could just hang the tentacles over the side of the cauldron, be my guest. But when octopus is cooked, it becomes stiffer, so it's more likely to fall off the side at that point. But regardless of how you drape the tentacles over the side of the cauldron, or even if you want to use a cauldron, now is the time to garnish however you like. For me, it was a couple of thyme sprigs and some kale leaves. And once you finish garnishing, your Halloween sea monster curry will officially be done. Phew! Not only was that one of the trickiest curries I've had to make, but that was not easy to clean up after, at all. But at the end of the day, if you really like octopus, or if you just like the shrimp and don't mind eating around the octopus, then feel free to give this recipe a try for Halloween, or any other party this may apply to. Now, I will fully admit that octopus is a very polarizing seafood, so if you don't really like octopus, or it's not Halloween when you find this recipe video, you can easily add pretty much any seafood to this curry you want. Up to you. I personally just think octopus is an absolutely delicious ingredient when— Okay, so, bit of a quick announcement. Cephalopods are, friends. Not food. Anyway, if you like what you saw here tonight, feel free to like, comment, subscribe, etc. And with that, I should probably get going, somehow. And I will see you back here next time for another recipe video that includes absolutely no cephalopods from the Curry Furry. Stay spicy. Okay, so, I can go now. Right? Right? I'm okay.